Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive today.
This is going to be a good one.
It is. We're going to be talking about Aunt Gretta,
Aunt Gretta. Yeah.
a woman who lived a truly incredible life.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you hear stories about family members from way back,
Yeah.
it can all seem a bit, well, distant.
Mm-hmm.
But trust me, Aunt Gretta's story
Oh,
isn't anything but boring.
she really did experience so much. It's a story that spans almost a century,
Wow.
filled with love, loss, resilience, and a sprinkle of adventure, too.
Exactly. And some of you might remember her, but for those who don't, I think you'll be amazed by what you hear.
For sure.
Her story begins back in 1925
Okay.
when she married Willard Bibb.
It was a different time then, of course.
Oh, I bet.
Think flapper dresses, the roaring 20s.
Oh, I can just picture Aunt Gretta in a flapper dress.
Oh, for sure.
But sadly, their happiness was short-lived. Just a year later, while driving during a terrible rainstorm, Aunt Gretta hit a curb and lost control of the car.
Oh, my gosh.
It was a horrific accident, and Willard, along with their unborn baby,
Oh, no.
didn't survive.
That's awful. It's hard to imagine the pain she must have gone through at such a young age.
I know.
I read that her brothers, including your grandfather, really rallied around her. They took her on trips, kept her company, and did everything they could to help her heal.
That's wonderful. It speaks volumes about the strength of their family bond, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
But even with all that support, Aunt Gretta decided to make a fresh start. She packed her bags and moved to Chicago.
Wow, it was a bold move for a young widow in those days.
I know, right?
But she wasn't one to let tragedy define her in Chicago. She found work as a secretary. And get this, she started investing in the stock market.
Wait, seriously, back then?
Yeah,
That's pretty forward thinking.
absolutely. She even invested in Philip Morris,
Wow.
which, as you know, became a huge company.
Yeah.
It shows her incredible foresight and financial savviness.
Especially for that era.
For sure, especially for that era.
Yeah. And, thinking about it, that financial independence probably gave her a sense of security and freedom after everything she'd been through.
Right.
So a few years later, in 1935,
Okay.
she met and married Bill Polzin.
Bill Polzin.
They lived in Rock Island, Illinois for a while, then moved to Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay.
They were starting to build a life together, but sadly, tragedy struck again, and Greta lost another baby boy.
Oh, gosh. It's just heartbreaking.
I know, to experience that kind of loss twice is unimaginable.
It's a testament to her strength that she kept going, and she had Bill by her side for many happy years. They were together until he passed away from cancer in 1951.
Oh, wow. You would think after losing 2 husbands and 2 children, she might have given up on finding love.
You would think.
But that wasn't Aunt Greta.
That wasn't Aunt Greta.
Here's where the story takes a really heartwarming turn. She ended up marrying Charlie Radesh, a friend whose wife had also passed away. They had known each other for years,
Okay.
and their shared experience of loss seemed to bring them closer.
It's beautiful how sometimes from the deepest sorrow, love can blossom, and this time happiness stayed with her.
It did, and remember when Grandma got that lovely bedroom set?
Yes.
And the rocking chair we used to fight over?
Huh?
Those were from Aunt Gretta when she and Charlie combined households.
I remember those. It speaks to her generosity, doesn't it?
It really does.
Even when starting a new chapter, she wanted to share what she had with her family.
And I'll never forget our visit to see them. We went sightseeing, toured Charlie's factory, and had our first lobster dinner.
Wow.
It was such a special trip.
Those little details are what make her story come alive.
Mhm.
And speaking of Charlie, he was a successful businessman. He owned a tool and die manufacturing company,
Okay?
which he eventually sold. They were quite well off.
That's right. And with that, they decided to embrace the sunshine and move to Sun City, Arizona.
Wow. They were among the first residents of that now famous retirement community. Can you imagine what it must have been like back then? A brand new town designed just for retirees.
I can't even imagine. That must have been quite an adventure.
For sure.
And true to her nature, Aunt Greta didn't slow down one bit. She took up golf and became quite the bridge player.
Oh, wow.
She was living her best life in the Arizona sun.
It's inspiring to see how she always embraced new experiences and stayed active even in her later years.
But of course, life has a way of throwing curveballs even in paradise.
Oh, yeah.
While riding her golf cart one day, she was hit by a car.
Oh, my gosh.
It was a terrible accident. Thankfully, she recovered physically, but it did leave her with some lingering pain.
Oh, no.
Despite this setback, her generosity continued. She invited our Aunt Opal to visit twice, even covering all her expenses.
It shows the depth of her care for her family. She wanted to stay connected and share her life with them, even when facing her own challenges.
And remember when we all went to visit her? Aunt Evelyn and her husband Cliff joined us too. It was a proper family reunion in Arizona.
That's great. Those visits must have meant the world to her family. It was clearly incredibly important to Aunt Gretta.
It really was.
But her story doesn't end there as she got older. She needed more care and eventually moved into a retirement apartment
Okay.
and then a nursing home.
Yes. And that brings us to another remarkable aspect of her story, her financial planning. The cost of her care was substantial, something like $10,000 a month.
Wow, that's a staggering amount. But
Yeah.
thankfully, she had the foresight to invest wisely. Throughout her life, those investments ended up covering the costs of her care, ensuring she could live comfortably and with dignity in her final years.
It's a powerful lesson for all of us, isn't it? The importance of planning for the future and making smart financial decisions. Sadly, Aunt Greta passed away in June 2004, just a few months shy of her 98th birthday.
A long and full life indeed, and what a story she left behind.
She really did.
She was brought back to Omaha and laid to rest in the family plot at Mount Hope Cemetery.
Oh, wow.
Next to Willard and her parents, it's a beautiful final chapter returning to where it all began.
It is poetic, isn't it? Bringing her full circle. And then, of
Yeah.
course, there was the reading of her will. Now, Aunt Greta was very organized and had planned for everything she wanted to make sure her family was taken care of.
And she did just that. She left her estate to all of her living nieces and nephews, as well as to Charlie's granddaughter and great-grandsons. It was a testament to her love and generosity, wanting to include everyone.
Absolutely. And Mitzi and Edna, who had been so devoted to Aunt Greta in her later years, were named as the administrators of her estate.
It was a big responsibility, but they handled everything with such care and compassion. They truly honored Aunt Greta's wishes.
They did, but, family matters can sometimes be a bit, complicated. There was a little disagreement about the inheritance. Our cousin Jim Ott
Oh, yeah.
felt that things weren't quite fair, that maybe Mitzi and Edna had received more than the rest of us.
It's understandable that emotions can run high in those situations, especially when dealing with the loss of a loved one and the distribution of an inheritance.
Yeah. But what struck me was how differently everyone reacted. Jim was quite upset, even considered taking legal action. But I have to say, I felt nothing but gratitude for Mitzi and Edna. They had given so much of their time and energy to caring for Aunt Greta.
It's a reminder that everyone grieves and processes things differently, and sometimes perspectives on what's fair can vary widely.
For sure.
Yeah.
In the end, it all worked out. We each received a generous portion of the inheritance, largely thanks to Aunt Greta's savvy investments over the years. And later, when Mitzi sold the remainder of Aunt Greta's stocks and bonds, we received an additional sum.
It's amazing to think how her smart financial decisions continued to benefit her family even after she was gone.
It really is. And speaking of things that have lasted, remember Aunt Greta's jewelry collection?
Oh, yeah?
Well, Mitzi had me appraise some of the pieces. There was this one stunning diamond ring valued at $1,200.
Wow. Jewelry often carries so much sentimental value passed down through generations. It's a tangible link to the past.
I actually ended up buying one of her diamond rings from Mitzi for $800.
Really?
And a friend of mine bought the bigger one for his wife, also gifted me a beautiful citrine pendant and some garnet earrings and pendants.
It's lovely that those pieces are still being cherished, but there's a little bit of a mystery surrounding some of the jewelry. It seems like a few pieces might be missing.
Yes, it's unclear what happened to them. Maybe a housekeeper took them, or perhaps Aunt Greta gave them away at some point. We may never know for sure.
It adds a touch of intrigue to her story, doesn't it? A little unresolved puzzle.
It does.
Yeah.
But even with that little mystery, Aunt Greta's life was truly extraordinary.
It was. And, as we've been talking about her, I've been thinking about what we can learn from her journey.
Me too. What stands out most to you?
For me, it's her resilience. She faced so much adversity, but she never gave up. She picked herself up, dusted herself off, and kept moving forward. She found love multiple times, built a life for herself, and created a legacy that continues to benefit her family.
I think that's a powerful message for all of us. Life isn't always easy, but we have the strength to overcome challenges and find happiness, even in the face of loss. And for me, I'm struck by her generosity. Even after experiencing so much loss, she always thought of others, from giving away furniture to supporting her sister to remembering all of us in her voice. Will she always put her family first?
That's a beautiful legacy to leave behind, and her story also highlights the importance of financial independence, especially for women. She took control of her finances, made smart decisions that secured her future, and allowed her to live her life on her own terms.
Absolutely. Aunt Greta was a woman ahead of her time in so many ways. She was a trailblazer, a survivor, and most importantly, a loving and generous member of our family.
It's been an honor to delve into her story with you today. I hope it's inspired you as much as it has me, and perhaps it's even sparked some memories of your own.
I hope so too. And if you have any stories or memories of Aunt Greta that you'd like to share, please do. We'd love to hear them. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into Aunt Greta's incredible life. We hope you've enjoyed getting to know her better or perhaps reconnecting with her memory.
And we hope her story has left you with a sense of wonder, inspiration, and a renewed appreciation for the power of family and the importance of living a life filled with purpose and joy.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and remember, every life is a story waiting to be told.